You're inheriting over $3 million, right? We've already started building a duplex for us to live together. And I've even included that dream kitchen I've always wanted, said my mother-in-law in a dreamy tone. I've quit my job. I decided to start a business using the inheritance Delilah received as capital, Cameron said, seemingly pleased with himself. Wait a minute, I told you I haven't received the inheritance yet. What do you mean by quitting your job and building a duplex? Don't lie, it's clear you've inherited the money. So, how about we go on a trip before the house is built? How about Hawaii, huh? My father-in-law said, joining in the excitement with Cameron and my mother-in-law, leaving me only more confused. What are these people thinking, planning to spend as they please my precious inheritance from my mother on luxuries? I felt a surge of anger but didn't know what to do. Our story goes back several months. My name is Delilah. I'm 38 years old and work as a high school English teacher. 12 years ago, I married Cameron, an office worker 2 years older than me. Soon after we got married, our daughter Sadie was born, and I've been busy with work and raising her ever since. Today is the day to visit my hospitalized mother and Sadie. Grandma. It's been a while. Well, Sadie, you're still such a sweetheart, my mother said, tenderly stroking Sadie's hair from her bed, her hands noticeably thinner and her complexion pale. A middle-aged woman in a suit and wearing glasses stood beside my mother's bed. She nodded in acknowledgement when I greeted her, and then left the room. Mom, who was that woman? Just an acquaintance, don't worry about it. More importantly, how are you doing, Delilah? Is Cameron well? My mother smiled softly, her eyes a shade close to blue. My father was working at a trading company, and my mother met him abroad. Soon after, they got married. Despite the difficulties of raising a child in a foreign country, my parents supported each other and raised me with all their effort. My ability to teach English is largely thanks to my mother teaching me from a young age. I'm deeply grateful for the love and upbringing my parents provided. After my father passed away a few years ago, my mother became sick and was hospitalized. She transferred her company to relatives and is now spending her remaining days quietly in the hospital. I'm fine, Mom. Is there anything you need? Just seeing you and Sadie makes me happy. After spending a good amount of time talking with my mother, Sadie and I headed home. Sadie shared what was going on at her school and the books she's been reading lately with her grandmother. Despite being at the challenging age of 10, Sadie and I have a good relationship. I believe she's grown into a bright and honest child, and I like to think that's not just a parent's biased view. We're home. Welcome back. How's your mother doing? She's as usual. How about you? How was your seminar? Oh, I heard some good stuff. Looking forward to the next one. Lately, Cameron has been attending seminars on entrepreneurship and side jobs. He probably wants more money, but his current job, while not top tier, pays well, and my income is substantial too. Yet, he has this money-obsessed side of his personality, just like his parents. I've kept my distance from my in-laws' excessive frugality and their habit of asking for money, even small amounts, whenever we meet. They've never even given Sadie a Christmas gift before. Fortunately, they live far away, so we don't interact much, and Cameron takes good care of his family, so I've managed to be okay with it. Having my mother, Cameron, and Sadie, and living a modest but normal life is enough for me. Then one day, I received a call from the hospital. My mother's condition had suddenly worsened, and she was in critical condition. When we arrived at the hospital, my mother was barely breathing. Mom, Grandma. No. Delilah, I always want you to be happy. More than anything else, please take good care of Sadie. I love you. Eventually, those became my mother's last words. The mother who, along with my father, had worked so hard to raise me. The mother who had adored Sadie with all her heart. Her face in the coffin was peaceful, and all I could do was cry. Sadie was there by my side, crying with me. Sometime after my mother passed away, a letter arrived at our home. A law form. Confused, the letter was from a sender I did not recognize. I opened the envelope to find a document stating, I have been entrusted with your mother's will, which states that you have been given the entirety of her inheritance. Since my mother and I had never discussed the matter of inheritance, I was taken aback. Yet, the letter had indeed arrived. I decided to go to the law firm alone. Hello. I'm Claire, the lawyer. The person who appeared was the middle-aged woman with glasses who had visited my mother in the hospital. You had visited my mother's hospital room before, I said, recognizing the familiar face. Yes, we met once in the hospital room. In fact, since that time, I had been entrusted with a will by your mother. Listening to Claire's kind voice, I was on the verge of tears. And then, I was so shocked I nearly collapsed. $5 million. Yes, Delilah, when your father passed away, you had renounced your inheritance, wanting your mother to receive it, right? Combining that inheritance with your mother's personal assets, even after taxes, amounts to this sum. Your mother had named you as the sole heir. Though my parents were indeed wealthy, I had never imagined the inheritance would be so substantial. Since I got married, we never relied on my parents for money, and we never even broached the subject of inheritance, considering it bad luck. Though I was dizzy from the shock, I realized that this must also be an act of love from my mother. Thinking so, I entrusted the lawyer with the procedure for receiving the inheritance. Your mother thought of you above all else. She also entrusted me to help you if needed. Please consult me for anything. Thank you, I appreciate it. I thanked Claire over and over, and then left the place. Time passed, and a month after she passed away, my husband began to ask about my mother's inheritance incessantly. When we got married, my father was still running his business, so my husband knew we were somewhat wealthy. Stop talking about that when I'm still mourning my mother, I would say. He would fall silent, but after a while, he would indirectly start asking about the money again. The last straw was my in-laws. One time at dinner, my father-in-law said something like this: Delilah, if you're struggling with the inheritance issue, we can help. You know, when a sibling of ours who wasn't married passed away, there was a dispute among the siblings. Inheritance can be quite complicated. If you have any troubles, feel free to talk to us. Yes, you can rely on us too. Okay. I could only give a vague response to my in-laws, who had never once offered to help us but now spoke as if they knew everything. Then, about 3 months after my mother passed away, one day, my husband, who had been quiet recently, spoke as if he couldn't hold back any longer. Hey, have you received your mother's inheritance yet? I had a bad feeling about this. I lied on the spur of the moment. It's been a hassle, so not yet. In reality, the procedure was already complete, and following Claire's advice, the bank book of the account with the inheritance had been deposited in a safety deposit box. But I felt it was better to say this for now. Really? But it's been 3 months since your mother passed away, hasn't it? Haven't you done the paperwork yet? Yes, so what? Well, never mind. I'm going to bed. For some reason, my husband went to the bedroom in a good mood. Feeling uneasy, I prepared a few things that I needed for tomorrow and headed to bed. The next day, while Sadie and I were cleaning up after dinner, the doorbell rang. Sadie hurried to the entrance, and I peeked out from the kitchen to see, to my surprise, my in-laws had come unexpectedly, with my husband, returning from work, behind them. Why is your father and mother here? It's fine. Sadie, go to your room. Sadie glanced at us uneasily and headed to her room. What's going on? Just relax. Delilah, today is a celebration. My father-in-law, in a good mood, opened our fridge without permission and took out a beer. Celebration. You're inheriting over $3 million, right? We've already started building a duplex for us to live together. And I've even included that dream kitchen I've always wanted. It was my mother-in-law who said this, in a dreamy tone. What are you talking about? Delilah, be happy. We decided to build a duplex. We used half of our savings and the savings my mom and dad provided for the down payment. The loan is in my name, but you can pay it off in full with your inheritance, right? Make sure you pay my parents back too. What? I quit my job. I've decided to start a business with the inheritance you received, my husband said, seemingly pleased with himself. Wait, what are you talking about? I told you I haven't received the inheritance yet, right? And what's this about quitting your job and a duplex? Don't lie. It's clear that you've inherited it. So, how about we go on a trip before the house is built? How about Hawaii, LOL? My confusion only grew as my husband and mother-in-law got excited, agreeing with what my father-in-law said. Then, my husband laughed through his nose and said, You're such a miser, lol. I checked because you kept saying you hadn't received it. You know, even if you don't do the paperwork within 3 months, you can't renounce the inheritance. You said you hadn't done the paperwork, but whether that's a lie or not, either way, you've already inherited it, right? That's, given the size of your mom's company, it must be over 3 million, right? Thanks to that, we can live comfortably, lol. We owe your mom a big thank you. Anyway, get the money for the duplex ready soon. And the capital for my company, too. Looking at my husband saying such things made me dizzy. What are these people thinking, wanting to spend the precious inheritance I received from my mother as they please on luxuries? I felt a surge of anger and was about to yell, but I couldn't say anything. I was worried about Sadie, who was in another room. I'm going outside for a bit. Though I said that out loud to the 3 of them, they were too busy discussing how to spend the inheritance and didn't hear, so I left without even bringing my wallet. The night air was cool, and it was only here that I finally started to cry. I went to a park on a hill that my mother and I used to visit and cried in silence. The anger didn't subside, and I felt frustrated and exhausted from being leeched upon like that. My emotions were a mess, and my heart ached, but I couldn't just say I wanted a divorce right away. We still have our daughter, Sadie. More than anything else, please take good care of Sadie. My mother's words came back to me, and tears spilled again. Suddenly, someone spoke to me. Startled, I looked up to see a person quietly speaking to me. 3 days later, I had summoned my husband and in-laws to a private dining room. What's this about? You haven't come home since that day. Have you finally withdrawn the money? That's right, Delilah. It's unacceptable for a wife to leave home without telling her husband. Absolutely. Ignoring their words, I pulled out a document. Divorce papers, all filled out. Cameron, please, let's get a divorce. What? What are you talking about? My husband panicked, and my in-laws exchanged glances. I can't do this with you anymore. What? What are you saying? My husband's face turned redder as he ranted at me. So, you're leaving us because you've received the inheritance. Changing your tune because you got the money, you gold digger. That's my line. I snapped back. You quit your job to start a business just because I received my mother's inheritance, decided we'd live together with your parents without asking. You even started building a duplex using our savings. And now Hawaii. Who has changed because of the money? I don't want to be part of such a family. Ick. You can't just decide to divorce like that. That's right, once you're married, your savings become joint property. Regardless if it's inherited money or not, half of it is Cameron's. That's right. Even if that's the case, you'll have to leave the $3 million with us. My husband and in-laws pressed on, frothing at the mouth as if they were going crazy. Just as I was about to retort, the door to the private room opened. Dad, Grandpa, Grandma, enough is enough. The inheritance Mom received doesn't become joint property. Right, Claire? Standing there were my daughter Sadie and the lawyer Claire. Sock Sadie. And who are you? I'm Claire, the lawyer. I've been appointed by Delilah's mother and have been advising Delilah since, Claire said, and my husband panicked. Wait, inheritance doesn't become joint property. That's correct. Inheritance received from a deceased parent is considered separate property and does not become part of the marital property to be divided. What? No way. Were we mistaken? Impossible. Seeing them panic, I was dumbfounded. It seemed they truly believed my inheritance would become their property. Then all the more reason we can't divorce. I'll cling to you no matter what. My husband, desperate, shouted with bloodshot eyes. Stop it already. Sadie spoke out. Sadie continued in an even tone. Ever since Mom mentioned divorce, no, ever since Mom inherited the money, did Dad ever think about Mom once? Grandpa and Grandma, all you ever talked about was money, never once mentioning me. I can't consider such people as family. My husband and in-laws were wide-eyed in surprise. It was Sadie who approached me on the day I cried, when I was being pressured by my husband and in-laws for the inheritance. She came to me, offering comfort, saying, Dad, Grandpa, Grandma are being too much, trying to claim Grandma's legacy as their own. Mom, I'm on your side. Let's fight this together. Spurred by her words, I decided to take action and contacted Claire to arrange for today. No, Sadie, you're mistaken. Dad's doing all this for your happiness. That's right, Sadie. You'd be happier living with us, wouldn't you? Exactly. Kids shouldn't interfere. My husband and in-laws desperately argued, still taking a high-handed approach. With a look of disgust, Sadie said, "I'm going with Mom. I can't stand family like you anymore." She turned away after speaking. "Anyway, I've made up my mind. Sadie and I are leaving." As I spoke calmly, my husband grew angry. "I haven't cheated or anything. You can't just force a divorce. I'll get a lawyer too. You're leaving the money behind no matter what. Then, I will take care of this matter from now on," Claire said quietly. The key issue will likely revolve around whether there are significant reasons that make continuing the marriage intolerable, such as quitting a job on one's own accord, using the household savings without permission for moving in together, and Sadie expressing she can't bear it. These points all stand strong in our favor. Additionally, Sadie has recorded audio of you all pressuring Delilah, which will serve as evidence too. Heck, damn it. My husband slumped, and my in-laws turned pale. Seeing that, we left the restaurant. A year later, thanks to Claire's efforts, my divorce with my husband was finalized. Sadie and I moved into the house where my mother had lived, but we continued to receive letters from my ex-husband saying, "I love you, please come back." He was also seen lurking around Sadie's school and my workplace, so I asked Claire to file for a restraining order against him. Since then, it's been quiet. I've heard rumors that the duplex was indeed built. My retired in-laws had to start working at a factory, and Cameron, unable to find a job, is now doing labor work. Neighbors told me they can hear shouting between family members every day coming from the new duplex. Their constant fighting has made them quite unpopular in the neighborhood. Sadie and I continue to live in harmony, supporting each other as always. Not long ago, Sadie said she wanted to study abroad in the country where my mother grew up, and we decided to move overseas to completely cut ties with Cameron. We used a bit of my mother's inheritance, but I'm sure she would be pleased. Sadie now happily attends a local school every day, and I have started working as a language teacher. We hope for these peaceful days to continue.